this might be a bit of a step change from the rest of the talk, so strap in. I'm not here to preach about gut health. I am just here to show my passion and to show the Gut Stuff's mission. The reason I'm not here to preach is because I don't really have a right to do so. I used to be a DJ. I'm from working class Scotland, so could not be further from health and wellness. I was brought up on deep fried pizza, chips, and 10 Lambert and Butler for lunch, age 11. But I actually volunteered for twin research under Tim Spector at King's nearly 10 years ago now, which is mad. So my twin sister and I were almost like his chief guinea pigs. So we were one of the first people in the world, just about, to have our guts analysed. So at the time, we were DJing on Radio 1 Extra, we were DJing for Love Island, not a contestant, as you can probably see, but very much emerged in pop culture. And as we started going through this research and realising how important our guts were, we started to think, what would happen if we could start teaching or talking about gut health with this audience that we're DJing to and thinking more about the preventative side of things and how that could potentially help the NHS. So it's been quite a journey in the last 7 years. But I think the reason we became so passionate about gut health is when I first heard the term gut, I was like, what do you mean my beer belly? You know, what actually is my gut? Finding out actually what my gut was and how it was linked to so many different areas of the body, in fact, all areas of health, my sister and I were like, why does no one know about this? You know, this was 10 years ago when people used to say, you know, what do you do for a living? I own a gut health business. I used to be like, what? And I sort of, you know, see the baseline knowledge of when I'm in a taxi and people ask what I do. And now when I say I own a gut health company, it's more now, oh, I've heard of that, or I've seen that in the news, or I've, you know, watched that TV show, or whatever. So it's really, really heartening, but we've still got a very, very long way to go. 25% of people in the UK suffer with a gut issue. That's massive. But with its links to mental health, immunity, heart disease, you know, it's so, so important that everyone starts to think about their gut. Just also a bit of backstory. My dad died in his 50s of a heart attack, along with a lot of his friends. They were only in their mid-50s. And I do genuinely believe if he'd known a lot of the stuff, the simple knowledge that I now know, I think he would still be here today. So you'll hear me banging on about fibre quite a lot later. I'm going to focus on the mission, the reason why we started the Gut Stuff, the work we've done so far, and I'm going to hand over to Emily, who's the brains behind this opposition, to dig into the science. But before I start, it would be really good to see a show of hands of just where everyone's baseline knowledge is, because I know we've got a lot of dietitians in the room, which is absolutely brilliant, so I think I'll be preaching the converted a bit. So I'm going to give 3 options. So first option is, who knows nothing about gut health? You know, was like me 10 years ago, what do you mean my beer belly? Show of hands? Okay, great. Second, you know a bit, you've heard about it, maybe. Okay, good. And third, you're an expert, you could be up here instead of me. Okay, cool. Yeah, come on. That's the Yakult, guys. They'll know. Okay, brilliant. A good mix, which is great. So, a little bit about what we've done and how far we've come in our mission. We were responsible for the pink poo posters in lockdown. I don't know if anyone saw them, that sort of saw us get to Sky News. But a lot of what we do is we use fun and entertainment in order to get a really serious message across. We had a Channel 4 series last year that 7 million people watched, which was amazing for us to see the rise in, you know, the people that wanted to learn about gut health. We actually beat Love Island, which was a good, nice career pat on the back for me. And the news, we've had 2 books out. We do a lot in educating in schools, universities. We're piloting to be on the school curriculum, which is absolutely brilliant. It's what I would do all day, every day. We do a lot on the corporate wellness side. So we have over 300 clients, everyone from Aegon to Accenture to Meta. For every corporate wellness talk we do a talk in a school, university, hospital, so please come up to me at the end because we're always looking for people and suggestions of talks that we can do within the community. So Lisa and I, you know, we always take one of our experts along with us so we can get cover a lot of places, especially if it's virtual. So please let us know if there's anywhere you think we can pop up. Philip kindly allowed us to be on the NHS Food Review Board, which was a real eye-opener for us as an outsider coming in to how the NHS operates. So I know a lot of the stuff we see today and a lot of the tips that Emily and I will give will be hard to implement straight away. I know from being on the board how hard it is to make change quickly. There's a lot of red tape. It's very disparate, and I was very naive to that coming into it. So I know that it's really, really difficult, but I hope that this can be a first step for some people just to ignite the passion of how truly important gut health is and how it can make a massive difference. The slides I'm going to take you through on the education side, I'm not going to go in too deep because Emily is going to do the science, but what I want to communicate is how a complex area of science can be communicated in a simplified way. We are in talks of how we could get our slides and education, NHS, and other comms, so just bear that in mind as we go through. So what actually is your gut? When we talk about gut health, the first complexity and barrier comes of people not actually knowing what their gut is. And we're talking about two separate things. We're talking about the physical and we're talking about microbial, which is hard. Even the word microbes, people are like, what do you mean? I have no idea. Bacteria, all bacteria is bad. Anyway, we'll get on to that. But your gut is actually everything from your mouth to your bum. It's a massive piece of kit. And I think people, I was certainly of that ilk of being like, oh, it's my stomach, I've got a sore stomach, and not realizing that actually your gut is the biggest pathway from the outside in, and it does so much for us, and it's so important. So actually just knowing what our gut is such a big barrier for a lot of the general public. I'm going to zip through these because Emily's going to go through it in more detail. But it does far more than just digest and absorb our food. 70% of our immune system is housed in our gut. These microbes that we're going to get on about actually teach our immune cells. This is massive. I suffered from rheumatoid arthritis as a child from the age of 7, and learning that, rheumatoid arthritis is linked to the gut was absolutely massive for me. And they actually think that because my sister and I were identical twins, they were completely baffled as to why I developed it, which should be, normally hereditary. And Lisa didn't, and it was actually because a course of antibiotics that I was on, recurrent antibiotics that I was on at kids, that completely changed the makeup of my microbiome. And actually, when we went through the clinical trials at King's, one of the things that really blew everyone's minds, including Lisa and I's, was that even though we have 100% the same DNA, we only have 30 to 40% the same gut microbiome, literally strangers. And at the time we were going through the clinical trials, we were eating the exact same thing, we were living in the same house, we were doing the same exercise, and yet our microbes, the blueprint of our microbiome was completely different. So we were like, hold on a minute, if we can't be sold the same diet and ours aren't the same, then how can anyone? And actually thinking about this one-size-fits-all model sort of puts that in the bin, really, which is so hard when we start to think about what can we do as an overarching umbrella, and we'll get into that personalization element in a bit. The gut-brain axis is huge. It's fascinating. I know Emily's going to touch on this a lot. We do a whole hour, our scientists do a whole hour of gut-brain axis, but actually just knowing there's a physical connection, I think, is a real light bulb moment to change those behaviors. So the reason we talk about gut health and we talk about these microbes is, when I first heard about the microbiome, I was like, what are you talking about? But when we talk about the microbiome, we're talking about the trillions of bacteria, yeast, and fungi that live in our large intestine that are so, so important to our overall health. And this is another big barrier. It's the second big barrier almost when it comes to gut health. Because, I was brought up thinking that all bacteria was bad, give me a bath, where's the Dettol? And then I started to realize that they were in, around, and on us. But our chief science officer, Emily, has a really good analogy that helped it click into place for me. She says, if aliens came from outer space, they would actually see us as a hybrid species, so half human, half microbial. And I was like, wait a minute, how for the first 25 years of my life did I not know that this ecosystem, I wouldn't be alive without it, and actually I can change it, and empoweringly, it can actually affect my health and affect it for the better. I think it's quite overwhelming, these messages, and it's interesting when we go to schools, kids just get it. They're like, oh, cool, yeah, got it, microbiome. But adults, it's hard to change those behaviours and thinking about actually how can we influence these microbes for the better. And I know Emily's going to touch a bit on dysbiosis and when they're out of whack. But yeah, they do so much for us. They're so clever. Yeah. What influence our microbes? So I wanted to put this slide in because I know that we're obviously here to focus on diet. But so this is more of a personal one for all of you. I think it can feel overwhelming when we realize something about our bodies we didn't, and we're going 0 to hero, let's make change. But actually, some of it we can't control. So how we're born, obviously, we can't control that. Medication, a lot of the time, we potentially can't. Where we live in the world, how we were fed as infants, all these things aren't with age, unfortunately. We might find some sort of pill for that at some point. Genetics we can't do nothing about, but diet is the biggest one we can do something about. Exercise and stress, also massive, but today, obviously, for the sake of this conference, we will focus more on the diet front. But this is just to show that actually these little beasts are quite fickle and we can change them for the better, which I think is actually really exciting. When we went through the clinical trials and they've seen it since then, you can actually change them within a matter of weeks, which I think is actually, really, really good to go, actually, what am I doing today will actually affect in 2 weeks, not just months, years down the line. The prevention piece is hard to get across because a lot of the work that's been done by these microbes on the inside, we can't see on the outside, so it's hard to commercialize in that sense. But I think just knowing that there's this ecosystem at play is really exciting. As I said, I'm not going to get too much into the gut-brain axis, but the fact that they're physically linked by this nerve called the vagus nerve, nothing to do with Las Vegas, unfortunately, was one of the light bulb moments for us as I went through the research. Just knowing that there was this connection helped me change my behaviors for the better. We've always, known or talked about these things of gut instinct or butterflies in your tummy if you're doing public speaking or you see the person you fancy, but actually knowing that this is a two-way system and actually more of the signals go up the way from the gut to the brain than they go down. So just knowing that this could be a really strong tool in our armory when it comes to mental health, I think is great. The only caveat I would say about this is the science that's going on in the background is phenomenal when it comes to the gut-brain axis, and it's really exciting what they're starting to uncover. But as always, the press have jumped on board and started to sensationalize it. And I think it's really, really important. A lot of work that we do, especially in the corporate wellness side and in universities, is saying, look, we are not saying that have a bit of sauerkraut is going to cure depression. That's absolutely not. But could gut health be a tool in the armory to help with our mental health? And we talk about mental health, we obviously are talking about all the conditions, but just even things, more lifestyle pieces, I think can really become a really good anchor into when we're talking about overall health. So yeah, as I say, we do a whole hour of this, so I'm going to sort of skip past it. I wanted to give a few tangible tips of what we as a business recommend. With fibre, of course, all the dietitians in the room will know if someone has a gut issue, we have to be careful with fibre. So when I'm talking about the tips that we say at the Gut Stuff, and by the way, we use the same tips at, Aegon as we do in a school, and we use the same slides on the education as well, is that gut health is super personalised. You have to do what works for you. But we were like, when we were on our bandwagon, but we want to tell the masses and we want to shout it for the rooftops. What can you all agree on? So these tips that I'm about to say are what all the scientists and clinicians from lots of different fields can agree on. So fibre, it blew my mind when I found out what fibre actually was, because I thought it was just prune juice and cereal. But actually, fibre is the part of a plant that we as humans can't digest, but our gut microbiome and our gut bugs love to eat it. So I think we've always known that fibre bulks our stool, as my granddad Jim used to say, it makes me go. But now we know we have this two-pronged approach that it actually feeds the bacteria in our gut. It helps us understand that we all need to be eating it more. 90% of the UK population are deficient in fibre. That's massive. And not only is 90% deficient, most of us are only getting about half the recommended daily intake of fibre. So The NHS guidelines is 30 grams of fibre a day. That is a lot, and it's very difficult, and I'm going to show you why that is really difficult. For example, a portion of broccoli is only 2.5 grams of fibre. An apple is only 2.5 grams of fibre. It is extremely difficult to get up to 30 grams a day. But we at The Gut Stuff are all about being affordable and accessible for everyone. So what tips can we give today to everyone that they can implement tomorrow? So just swapping white pasta, rice, or bread for whole grain. Seems like an easy step. Trying to get my husband to do it was very difficult. So we did like a sort of ratio of, 50% white rice, 50% whole grain, and then did the ratio up. Also works really well for kids. As with everything, don't go from zero to hero. Start slow, drink lots of water. We've just brought out an app that will help you see how much fibre is in things, because it's not actually mandatory to have fibre on the back of packs. So a lot of the time with food, you actually don't know how much fibre is in it. So we've developed a fibre tracker on the app, and you can just put in sort of simple foods as well. It is hard to get 30 grams a day. I've been there. I think I'm still not quite there every day. And by the way, I'm no angel. I think this is why The Gut Stuff has resonated. I did not come from a health and wellness background. I still love a bottle of red. I'll still have, a takeaway on the way home after a night out. But it's about, gut health is about small, simple steps over a long period of time. That's not sexy. It's hard to commercialize, but how can we get people just making these tiny steps, swapping, white for brown, keeping the skins on veg and fruit is a massive one. It almost doubles the amount of fibre if you keep the skins on, and no one notices. Roast potatoes are still as crispy with the skins on, I can confirm. Yes, up in your water if you're up in your fibre as well. And actually, I'm not going to stand up and do a sales pitch for our fibre bars, but just to touch on that, we developed our fibre bars, which are a third of your recommended daily intake, 10 grams of fibre per bar, no emulsifiers or preservatives, because we were like, this is impossible to get 30 grams a day if you're, I've got a toddler, run a startup, I don't have the time to be cooking everything from scratch. How can I just top up that fibre a day? So that's why we brought out the bars. But it's been brilliant for us to see, just on the commercial arm, the rise of the bars. We just launched in Tesco this week in 400 stores, which is a massive look to see, how people are looking to health, and snacking can be used as a way to help us reach those health goals. The grocer, gut health is going to be bigger macro-10 than protein. Interesting food that supports gut health is up by 56% in the last 2 years, and we've certainly seen that as a rise as a company and consumers really starting to think about what they can swap out. And we always say, I know I'm not going to convert someone like my mum to having one of our bars every day straight away. She's probably going to have her Mars bar 5 days a week, and then she might have our bar 1 day a week and then start that ratio down. And I think that's really important, and I think I'm so passionate about that, is how can we make small, simple steps that aren't overwhelming. I was that person when I started thinking about health in my 20s. It was like cabbage soup diet, pre-Magaluf, 2005. It was so extreme. And then I go to Magaluf and drink 40 litres of vodka. I mean, pointless. But then we think about health as stripping everything out and being restrictive. And we certainly, a lot of us, I'm not speaking for everyone, think about it from the outside in instead of the inside out. And especially, for me, working with that younger demographic on a show like Love Island, was people, that generation, do still, of course, think about what it is on the outside, because they're not suffering. As we get older, I think we start to think about our health in different ways. But actually, gut talk is massive. Anyone on TikTok? I'm a dinosaur. We've got a marketing intern that does this, but gut talk is massive, which was brilliant for us to see. 7 billion views about gut health on TikTok on that younger demographic. So if there's anything that you can take away from this talk, hopefully, is that it's exciting. Kids are, that younger generation are thinking about prevention. They are looking to their health. And I think that's a really, really exciting place to be. I mean, I don't know how they're making mistakes, because they drink coffee and hypothesize about the world. They're not on WKDs like we all were, but there we are. There's hope for the future. Variety. I know Emily's going to touch about the science behind why we should be having 30 different plants a week. It was actually a study that my sister and I took part in, or our poos took part in. But 30 grams of fibre a day is what we recommend, and it's 30 plants a week. So there's this magic number 30, and there is science to back up why it is 30. But this also sounds overwhelming. Firstly, people are like, what do you mean by a plant? Am I going to be going into my garden and eating leaves? What do you mean by that? But no, plants are whole grains, vegetables, fruit, nuts and seed, legumes, and herbs and spices always count. My sister and I have all the hacks. As we've been through the last 10 years of this gut health journey, we're like, give me the quick fixes. You know, what are the hacks? Different colours count, so red pepper, yellow pepper, green, orange. I think this is really interesting for the chefs as well, is how can we start thinking about, you know, different colours and variety. And I know that costs more money, you know, but there is science to back why this magic number 30 is there. And I think we don't really yet know what a good gut and a bad gut looks like when it comes to our microbiome. But what we know at the minute, and the science is still evolving, which I think is really exciting, is that diversity is key. So as many different types of bacteria as possible. So you'll hear the word when it comes to gut health with diversity and variety, and this is why. We want to be feeding and nourishing and putting as many different types of bacteria into our gut as we possibly can, and this magic number 30 helps us to do so. What time am I on? Am I rambling? 10. Oh, right, cool. Okay, so as you've probably got the gist of, our talks are normally about an hour long, and we just focus on one thing. So I've tried to really condense it more, but please come up after. I'd love to speak to you more. And we've got so much information on our website and our app, and our TV show is still on all four. It's called Know Your Shit. Can I say that? Know Your Sh. We have a new podcast coming out called Chat and Sh. Why are we doing this to ourselves? We go and promote it on breakfast telly, and we can't even say the title of it. But there we go. This is us trying to condense everything that we know about gut health today, because the science, like, as I said, is you know, so exciting. And people always say to us, you know, should I be taking this magic pill that costs you 100, 200 quid? Should I be doing this test? How do I know about my gut health? What should I be doing? One thing I would say is, look at your poo. It'll be a very good indication. Obviously, being in the NHS, you'll be very well acquainted with the Bristol stool chart. That is your first port of call over any expensive testing, in my opinion. But these are the sort of fundamentals we think most of the UK, and I include myself in that bracket, are not getting these fundamentals right when it comes to gut health. So variety, we spoke about, fibre, the gut-brain connection is huge. The stress and that, so the impact that stress on us has on our microbes and the secular nature of it is really profound. But we all live very stressful lives. You know, one of the things that really sort of blew my mind is one of our clinicians told me that our body actually doesn't know the difference between actual stress and perceived stress. So our body will react in the same way as a WhatsApp pinging up from our boss than if a saber-toothed tiger was running after us. And that was a big eye-opener for me, thinking, you know, I must be in chronic stress all the time. And I think a lot of us are, and that has a huge effect on our microbes, and our microbes all have effect on our mind as well. As I say, Emily's going to go into this in more detail, and we have a whole hour of talk on it. It's fascinating. You know, stuff our granny told us, drink more water. None of us do it. We don't do it enough. Movement, lots of new science coming around how movement can affect our microbes. I think even changing this idea of exercise. You know, I always thought it was exercise of like 60 minutes at a HIIT class or 90 minutes in a Bikram yoga studio. Did anyone else do Bikram yoga? You weren't allowed to drink water. Crazy. It was very good for my arthritis, but I always saw exercise as really extreme. And actually, at the Gut Stuff, we talk about movement snacking. Could you get off the bus a stop early and walk that bit? When I'm working from home, you know, could I, when I'm going down for my coffee, take the stairs twice? You know, a lot of us are hybrid working now. Could we, you know, go around the block when we finish work? When we close our laptop, when we go around and walk the block, we come in and we say, right, this is home life now. I'm not going to look at my emails. Difficult, I know, I run a startup as well. But these little simple swaps, I'm just throwing out ideas because I want to sort of say that gut health is complicated, but the tips we give off the back of it don't have to be.